we're happy for, everybody that's joined today. It's sponsored by Network Lead Exchange. We're a online networking and business referral group. We have 32 chapters now in about 15 different states. And today we have an awesome guest, Dale Dupree. I'm going to kind of let him give his own introduction, but he's the leader of the Sales Rebellion. He's got a lot of other stuff going on, podcast. I see him on YouTube and LinkedIn, very heavy, and looking forward to the conversation. So if you wouldn't mind giving everybody a little bit about yourself, Dale, who you are, what you do.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do the Cliff Notes real quick. But to really understand my story, we got to start back in 1984 when my father founded his copier firm. I was born the following year in 1985 with toner running through my veins, as they like to say. So what really had happened in that moment for me was that my father had chosen a destiny for himself that would also become a legacy that I would be following in the footsteps of and living in the shadow of as well. So I actually rebelled against going to ever work for my father's small business, selling a copy machine for that matter, being in sales altogether. And I played music all over the United States, a couple different countries, toured on a major record label, Warner Music Group. Band was called Imperial. If anybody wants to nerd out and try to go and find some dirt on me, it's very easy. So from there, I decided at a certain point that I needed to make a shift, focus on things that were a little bit more important to me outside of just the aesthetics and the rock star lifestyle and the fame. It's not necessarily what I wanted as much as I cared for the people that were on tour with me, the kids that were in the crowd, the parents that were watching the joy and their little legacies, actions as they jumped off stage or like punched other kids in the face. I'm sure there was a lot of joy, but we were a heavy metal band in case you're wondering. But I came back to work for my father. I crawled through the mud. I bought a house in 2007. And if anybody was alive in 2007, you're like, wow, that sucks.
Yeah.
And so I did the thing where I didn't eat dinner and I put everything on a credit card and I had to eat at gas stations because that was the only credit card that was turned on at one point. And eventually became a six-figure guy, making, upwards of $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 selling copy machines, became a VP of sales for the organization that I represented. And eventually decided that sales is broken and that it in a lot of different facets too. And I could go into those, but we'd have to be here for 50 more minutes to talk about it. So instead, I'll tell you that I founded and started a Sales Rebellion, a movement birthed not just around the concept of a company, but the people that inhabit it. So not just our students either, all of those that believe that there's something bigger in your calling when it comes to your work life, that it doesn't just have to be, I sell a widget, that it can be something that creates a legacy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And before we jump into it a little bit more, do you mind sharing a little bit about Sales Rebellion?
Sure. So we're a one-on-one coaching organization or individual contributor coaching organization, I should say. But we've branched, that's how we started, but we branched into serving companies as well too. Boot camps, running 1 to 2 day boot camps, kickoffs, doing the old, spend a lot of money, have some guy come out and yell at your people for a day. But we do it all extremely different. We do it from we speak to people from a place that they're already in. We don't come in and try to teach them all these new ways. We just awaken the rebellion that's inside of them and the rebel that's longing to get out. So I have 10 total coaches inside of the Sales Rebellion right now. We want to have 100. We want to touch 1 million lives across the world. And I think that's grown from 1 million to 10 million now. And so maybe it'll be 100 million soon, and maybe it'll be 1 billion one day. But it's an ever evolving vision around the concept of, again, changing the landscape of sales, providing experiences over performing pitches, putting people over products, putting community over commission checks, and putting fellowship over negotiations. So it's very non-traditional from the approach perspective. We're not telling people to 10X anything or to be fanatical about the way that they go to their sales career, but we are asking people to draw deep from within themselves and to call on that rebel that we all know is existent.
That's awesome. I love it. Love it. So you guys are growing. You said you have about 10 coaches now?
Correct. Yes.
That's awesome. Awesome. Great. And anyone listening right now, if you, get a chance, you should check it out. The Sales Rebellion, you can just really easily just Google Dale Dupree and everything will come up. But, I discovered one thing: you can't Google Dale's name without running into some of his probably infamous Copier Warrior videos.
Yes.
So that's full disclosure. And I know they were from a little bit ago, probably towards 2017, 2015, around there.
2014 and 2017, yeah, or
okay,
2014
okay.
and 2016, yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. I actually showed my dad. I had one up and I was like, Dad, you see, I got a call with this guy right here on this video tomorrow. And he was like, who is this?
That's too funny. Your dad's like, run.
Copier Warrior. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Want to hit some of the really most talked about topics right now. A lot of people are scrambling, and everybody's getting sick of talking about pivoting during COVID and all that, mumbo jumbo, but there's a lot of change going on, and people are changing the way they do sales. And first question I wanted to bring up, despite conversation is, what is, in your opinion, changing the fastest, and what's the most important aspect of sales that is changing right now?
Well, I think that for anybody that was a street rep is no longer a street rep. They're a Zoom rep now, right? So there have been some major changes for some folks. However, I would encourage everybody listening to understand that it's not that things are completely back to normal, but a lot of our reps that we do teach that have been door to door are back in the field, whether they're wearing a mask or they're taking extra precautions or they're not getting into as many places as they used to before. They're still out and they're persevering through this. And so I think more than anything, it's an adaptation mindset around thriving instead of surviving. But I would say that the big thing that I think will change forever is the way that people use social. Like LinkedIn went from 650 million users to God knows what. They haven't announced what kind of influx they had, but me alone, I think during the pandemic, I amassed about 8,000 more followers than I already had. And that's just from organically using the feed, not reaching out to people or asking people to add me or follow me, just using the organic feed inside of LinkedIn. So obviously there's a massive shift from the social perspective. I think that people look at Instagram differently now. They're looking at TikTok differently. TikTok even has an advertisement right now where they are going after B2B companies, not just a B2C, but B2B organizations, and saying, hey, your consumers are in here. They're in here watching Gary Vee and Grant Cardone and whoever else has some kind of channel that kind of influences business leaders or even just folks that are entrepreneurial to that extent as well too. So I think that a lot of the social channels are even seeing the shift and watching their numbers spike, not because people are bored, but because people are trying to figure out if no one's in the office, no one's picking up their phone, no one's answering their email, what could they be responding to? And I believe that shift will continue, and we will eventually all just have a LinkedIn Messenger app that we're using.
Yeah. No, definitely. I've seen a huge increase in LinkedIn, a lot of organic reach on LinkedIn, and, just the activity just way up. What would you say is the biggest mistake that salespeople are making during this time, as they're evolving and changing the way that they're doing things?
I would say there's two. Mm-hmm. The first one is sending emails that start with, I hope your family is okay and that everybody is safe. And I wanted you to know that my CEO really cares and he's so worried about your health and safety. Those are crap garbage emails, right? Just to be extremely blunt. It's this fake empathy play that if you didn't have before, it shows. So one of the things that salespeople typically aren't good at in the first place, or that sales organizations don't focus on because it does not meet their agenda of hit the number, close the deal, cash the commission check, is to be empathetic towards others. But I grew up around a dad that he taught me those things. My dad taught me that somebody else's worth is much bigger than yours, and to treat people in that light, and to just have a humble heart in the way that you go to market, and the way that you interact with your territory, and to flip that concept of a territory to a community. So little mindset shifts. And so if you're not already here, you can't just show up is the concept. So even with the students that we teach, a lot of them come in because they've been told to hard sell all their life. They suck at not telling little white lies. They need to get a shift, or to create a shift in their go-to-market campaigns, their general interactions with people. And empathy is typically left out. And so people that are trying to use it, the fakeness of it is terrible. The second is offering some kind of discount because of COVID-19. This is the worst concept in the world. Now, it'll definitely get people to buy, but people will also remember what you were doing. You know, the people at the bottom that need the help, it's awesome that you're serving them, but you're not targeting them. You're trying to get people to spend lots of money. So even if you do have a product that's like a $12 subscription and you made it $3, I mean, what's the difference between those numbers, right? Sure, yearly, when you add it all up over the course of 12, 24 months, it's a lot of money for somebody that makes $30,000 a year or less. But again, what are you really trying to accomplish here? You're just trying to get by and keep your doors open, right? But what's parked in your driveway? How big is your house? That's what I say. And it's not to say that somehow those things are bad, but if you're not leading from the front, then get out of the way. Like, get out of the way, because if there's no example at the top, then how can anybody else treat other human beings with the respect that's necessary and needed? And your marketing campaigns will look like garbage because of it. People will just see you forcing things, trying too hard, making excuses. Oh, times are tough, and so we're giving a discount right now. Like, dude, if times are tough and people need a discount, offer it to them when you get on a Zoom call with them, right? Tell them that, hey, I really do care, and I would like to take care of you during this time, so that you'll remember that I'm here for you and not just to make a sale. And give them a free month instead of 10% off. You know, I mean, hook it up. Treat people like you would want to be treated, and you'll start to change the game from the perspective of what people are doing wrong right now. But I think the backlash is massive right now, especially for SaaS organizations. I read a couple articles yesterday that I just was sitting there thinking to myself, I knew this was going to happen, where people are now boycotting specific resellers and softwares and different subscription models because of what they've been doing and how they've been taking advantage of people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I know, like earlier you touched on emails and the way people are addressing emails, and a little bit of social media as well, and how there's been a huge uptick there. And, the content creation, I wanted to get a little bit into that with sales, because I know you're really involved in a lot of content creation with videos, podcasts. What type of content should people be creating, if they're in a sales role?
So I think what is powerful and what people tend to be drawn toward is your walk, your journey, right? We call it the rebel journey here at the Sales Rebellion. And the idea of people saying to me all the time, like, I don't have your story. So, and by the way, for people that are listening that don't know my story, is that I openly talk about my struggles with depression, my attempted suicide, the loss of my father, my battle with specific types of addiction, and not necessarily drugs or alcohol, but things like anger. And I'm very open about it because of losing my dad in 2016, and this idea of being able to have something happen to you that you can speak outwardly about frees other people. It frees yourself too. When I gave the eulogy and I looked out across just a sea of people that I didn't recognize, there was 900 people was the capacity of this room. There was over 1,000 people. I mean, people lined against the walls, standing on each other, lined on the back door. And to sit and think that my father was just a copier salesman, but this is the impact that he created, it humbled me. It broke me. And furthermore, it encouraged me to be able to tell the stories that my dad always told me to tell. Don't worry about what people think. Be your authentic self. It all came to fruition in that moment where I finally sat back and said, I get it. Because you might lose your dad when he's 60 years old and not have him for the rest of your life. You're never going to meet my son. There's lots of things that I have to suffer through because of it. And I think that these are relevant stories to people in general, that the idea of being able to connect with somebody and to create with somebody is to find your tribe. And when it comes down to it, people buy from their friends. Jeffrey Gitomer is my favorite of all of the people out there that are sales influencers. He is my number one go-to guy, and he's not even the best. Sorry, Jeffrey, I love you, bro, but there's still an old guard out there, right? And he's part of it, which, again, I respect the man and I respect them all. But I love when he talks about relationships and sales, because it's the truth. You and I know it. Everybody on this call knows it, that if your buddy hits you up and they're really a buddy and not just some guy you met at a bar or some dude that's always, picking at you and, hey, I got a new MLM. You want to get some grape soda stuff and sell it to all your friends? I mean, like a real friend. When those types of people approach you and you see growth and you see the ability to honor one another through the business and the ability to be able to sharpen one another through the concept of the relationship you will have, you're sucked in, and it's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's that indoctrination concept, but in a very healthy way, not like Scientology, a much healthier form of it, right? But again, I think that the big picture concept for content needs to be like, find your tribe, create, build. And the thing is that it all starts with your existing walk and the story that you're telling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Story is huge. It's extremely important. Everybody needs to have a story behind them. We teach that here at our office as well. And that should be a huge part of the sales process. I want to kind of shift a little bit and change the topic. I know you talk a lot about cold calling. I hear a couple of, it says the internet is a little unstable. Can you hear me, Dale?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Okay. You talk a lot about cold calling, and I know that's kind of basic level sales stuff, but a lot of people undermine cold calling. Is cold calling dead? I want you to talk a little bit about that.
I think what's dead in cold calling is like people dialing and saying things like, is the man of the house available? Or, because that's just so outdated and so disconnected. Or people hitting you up, you redlining them and them calling you back right away to make it look like it's an emergency or it's a problem or you need to pick up the phone, right? I think things like that are dead. I think things like that people see, and then when it happens to you, that you just think, man, this sucks, and it stereotypes salespeople. And that's the problem. That's why we need a sales rebellion. This isn't just a rebellion against the idea of like what the buyer is cultivating. This is the idea of what sales has become, and rebelling against the old guard and what used to be, which is this idea of that people are a commission check. That's it. That's all they are, right? They're a number to get to they're a means to an end. They're just a number, right? So getting away from that is important. So cold calling is dead from the perspective of that. If you sit back and look at a list of 300 people and start to just hit each and every single one of those up, playing some kind of luck game, which I don't believe exists in the first place, instead of being intentional, instead of trying to build relationships, instead of understanding that these are names and not numbers, then you'll never be able to get out of the stereotype of cold calling as it is, or the shackles in which they bind you to. Now, cold calling works. Right, it truly does. That's why people still do it. It's why the people at the top have not changed their mind, because they know that if they bring someone in here and they get them hungry enough and they get them on the phone dialing enough, that they'll make good money and they'll make great money for the company. And because of that, to them, it's the people even that come to serve are a dime a dozen. We take cold calling from a much different perspective and much more seriously than most people do. We have a theory called the reason theory, which is to radically educate and share one's narrative. Radical education is the concept of turning people on to you and building a reputation before you ever call them in the first place. So, for example, this little brick right here, we call it the repair brick, and it's a foam brick, right? But what I used to do as the copier warrior, and what we use it for anybody that's selling a product, a tangible product, IT, so hardware, copy machines. And what you do is you leave this brick for your prospect before you ever dial them. And the brick comes with instructions on how to use it on your product, which is this idea of, oh, is it broken? No worries. I got the repair brick right here. Just chuck this thing as hard as you can at it. Oh, by the way, it's not going to actually fix it. It's just going to make you feel a lot better. If you want to fix it, you got to call me. And calling behind that is much different than calling and saying, hey, this is Dale with the Sales Rebellion. Wanted to see if I could get 15 minutes on your calendar to tell you a bunch of stuff that you don't care about in the first place, right? It's much different when you call and say, hey, did you get my brick? What'd you think? Creating dialogue and conversation with people and humbling the sales process. That's what needs to happen inside of cold calling.
Definitely. That's awesome. How should sales be integrated with customer service? I know you do talk a lot about customer service as well. I've listened to quite a few of your podcasts now. But bring that into it and kind of put that together. Where should sales and customer service intertwine?
Yeah, so people always get me confused for a salesperson. And even though I know I'm good at sales, and I have a healthy amount of arrogance around it, which I think is super important for everybody. You're all gifted at something, and you need to understand that you're good at it. You need to bless other people with it instead of using it to your advantage. What I really am is a good marketer. That's what I really am, deep down inside, because of my creativity. I created a company that's like the complete opposite of what sales training is, right? Because I have a vision for it. I have this idea around how can we connect with people instead of just making them want to be a part of what it is that we do because it's going to make them more money. How do we make people want to be a part of what we're doing, right? That is a simple and powerful statement that you have to make for yourself and define in your walk in general. But as a network, as somebody that's good as somebody who's good at marketing, you have to understand the customer experience from the very beginning. You have to give people the experience they deserve inside of prospecting. You have to give people the experience that they deserve when you present your product. You have to give people the experience that they deserve when you close them. And then you have to take that experience and make it last for the next 4 years until they're ready to buy your product again, the new version of it, right? That is so important. Customer experience is what allows sales organizations to thrive to begin with. And if you don't lead with it at the very front end, then there's no way that you can nuance it all the way through. And at some point, somebody else will come along and take that customer from you, even when they've been with you for 25 years. I can't tell you how many times someone told me, not interested, we've been with our guy for 25 years and they've taken such good care of us. When they said things like that, I just started doing things like sending them things in the mail like this, which is the travel letter, as we like to call it. It's a letter that has copy in it, that talks about how this letter's been all the way around the world trying to get a hold of the hardest person to find on earth, which is you, the decision maker. And doing things like that started to cause these 25-year relationships to crumble, because not only was this creative and that it was engaging, but we also, through the process of it, we developed the idea of giving people an experience. And because we're giving people an experience, more so than just getting people hyped up about our cool marketing, they wanted to know, what would it be like? And I hate to say it this way, but it's like a relationship sometimes. When you're stuck and you're stagnant with something that's just dull and it's boring and it's bland. By the way, I've been married for 13 years and it's not dull and boring or bland. And I've been with her for 18. So I also understand this from a different perspective, right? But if you're in this position where it's just a constant struggle, at some point, no matter how comfortable it is, you're going to start thinking like, I wonder what it would be like. I wonder what would happen. Yeah. There's a song by a country artist actually that I heard a long time ago that was like, where the wife asks the guy, says, if I wasn't around, what would you do with yourself, basically? And then he tells her, and the whole song, he's like, I'd be fishing more, I'd hang out with my buddies, I'd drink more beer. And the moment I heard that song, I thought, this is it right here. The curiosity that people have toward an experience that's different than the one that they have currently.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. I know the song. I think it's by Lee Bryce.
Yeah. That's it.
So I know I gave you a little bit of information about, who we are, Network Lead Exchange. We're a networking company. So we have networking groups all around the country. And just on that topic a little bit, because we invite a lot of our members and chapter owners to these discussions. And what do you do in regards to networking and growing your business? Because obviously you have some sort of networking, strategy, whether that's Zoom or in person. I know not a lot of in person right now, but over the years, what have you done?
Yeah. So I think what's really interesting about my past is that everything was always face-to-face, everything. I did the typical BNI leads. I did the rebellious groups that were like, nah, let's not pay $500 a year. Let's do it for free and just pay for lunch. I have done those types of things my whole career. I've even started my own power groups. So finding other people that are in complementary industries, going into the field with them, visiting each other's existing clients, introducing one another. I think that networking is the most powerful form of sales. I'm a huge believer in it. It's much different when someone calls you up and says, hey, Alex told me to give you a dial. I need a copier. It's much different than you cold calling them. Even when you're using the kind of marketing stuff that I've been talking about, it's different because it's an instantaneous, credible source that it's coming from and that's creating inside of your existence with that person right away, instantaneous. Whereas causing curiosity is just that. It just makes people feel the need and drawn towards something that they can't necessarily have or that they don't necessarily have. But credibility is the grounds in which sales transactions are founded in the first place. So networking in general, I think, is an extremely important piece. I would tell everybody listening that's out there to continue to do what we're doing to curve the concept around the pandemic as much as possible so that we can get back to being face-to-face, because we run things called the Rebellion Rallies that we actually put on where we have hundreds of sales reps show up. We're agnostic to what you sell. We're agnostic to even promotion of products. We have 4 guest speakers come out and tell stories about their struggles, about their strengths, about their weaknesses, give everybody a platform to be able to network with each other because no one there is buying. They're all selling, right? And so we've created a massive community because of it. We've done them all over the United States. And as soon as things are better, we're going to keep touring and continue to do them like my old band days, right? But with the pandemic and the pivot, it is important to go toward things like Zoom. We do a free Zoom twice a month. We do the Rebel Hideaway, which is a secret that we can't tell you about. And that just makes you want to go and find it even more, right? But it's free sales training, essentially. But there's a lot of twists and turns and surprises in it. And then we do a happy hour, which is the first Wednesday of every month. And the idea of it is, again, it's more than just building a network. It's building your tribe. That has to be the focus for people. It can't just be like, oh man, Titus gives me all these sick leads and I get so much business from him. Like, it can't just be that. It has to be that I love Titus. That's what it has to be. I love who he is. I love what he stands for. I love how he supports my business. There has to be a connection. You have to build a tribe. You have to be able to say that there are commonalities, that there are strengths between the two of you and weaknesses as well too from that perspective. But it can't just be about closing stuff and making money. That disconnects you from the person on the other end of it. But that's also what gets people to show up to your Zooms, because there's probably a lot of people that are doing these types of Zooms that have one person show up to them, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. And they're sitting around going like, I don't know, I'm sending all these emails. Nobody wants to come out, and not getting any replays of what they've put together, right? Where we have about 750 registrants at ours, and anywhere between 100 and 200 people show up live, and anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 plays get hit on those videos when they go up on our private channel that those people have access to. So value, right? Value is an empty word, but in networking and in this type of format, it's extremely powerful when it's intrinsic inside of the relationship.
Definitely. I want you to tell us a little bit about your podcast, Selling Local. Give a quick, 30-second commercial on the podcast. I love how they're, a bit shorter. That's one thing I really like about certain podcasts. There's a time and place for the bigger, longer podcasts, but everyone likes a quick hit.
Yeah. We have 2 episodes that are an hour long. I think we have 3 actually, and we have 60. I think we have 80 episodes recorded and pending, but maybe 67 live or something like that. But yeah, you're right. Like, micro content is important. We think so much about the macro too often. We think, oh, what's my outcome? How do I get to my outcome? Outcome. You've got to be focused on the micro, on the in-betweens. And so the podcast is a way for us, even as coaches, to be able to be very present with our students. The community is cool, we're cool that with the fact that we get, a couple thousand downloads an episode from the following that we have. But the reason we created it is for our students. So in between classes, it's listen to these episodes before we get back together. Listen to these episodes before we get back together. And we have 6-month interactions with our students on, on the bottom tier, right? So some stay with us for more than 12 months. We've got we've only been around for a year and a half at this point. We've got a few people that have been here since the inception. So there's this concept of when it comes to a podcast of why is it popular? Why do people listen to them? And furthermore, what do people need? Because sometimes it takes being a little risky. Like we have music that plays sometimes in the background while we're talking. Our intro and outro is big. It's very in your face. It's very from the heart and authentic, more so than it is commercial. And so we take risks that way because there's a lot of people that'll say, I don't like this. And that's okay. You're not our tribe. And we love you anyway, right? But move along and go find something that works better for you. But selling local, I had somebody come to me recently and say, so I hate the name of your podcast. I said, cool, tell me why. I love hearing when people have negative things to say. It's my favorite. And he said, well, I don't sell. I love what you do. I love your content. I love your mindset. I love your market tools. So the crumpled letter is one of our big ones that a lot of people end up downloading and purchasing. But I hate your podcast because I'm not a local salesperson. I sell all over the globe. And that's where people disconnect and have an issue. And that's how we know that they're not our tribe, because selling local is not about being a local salesperson. It's about the idea that if you're selling $1 million transaction and you're located in Pakistan and this person is in Mumbai, or, I should probably say somewhere further like New Zealand, right? The idea is that the distance shouldn't matter, that they should feel like they're getting the local touch when it comes to the sales transaction. And so the things we teach inside of selling local are the idea of that you can be an enterprise rep, you can be a down the street rep, it doesn't matter. What we're telling you is that this is the mindset of being a human being, raw basic communication theory, psychology concepts, the bigger picture perspective of what sales actually is. Not a transaction, not a commission check, but a connection with another human.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a huge topic. I know you touch on that a lot in the different podcasts, and I've enjoyed listening to it over the past, it was about a month ago, actually, that I discovered it, and cool. Been listening to them here and there. And so I've enjoyed it. You said very loud intro and outro, but I like that stuff. So
cool. Thanks.
So anything else you want to touch on? I have I know you have the sales rebellion going on. Anything that you want to say to anyone listening and to kind of close this out?
Yeah, I would say that to anybody and everybody that I run into, the same thing, which is that there's a reason that you came and listened today. Whether you knew I was going to be talking or you were looking forward to it, I appreciate either one of those things, because it's time that you've sacrificed to be here. And I believe that time is the most important thing that we can give to one another. And so for that, I'm grateful, extremely grateful. Sometimes the word thank you doesn't hit hard enough, but it should. In its raw form, when I say thank you, you should understand that that's a big deal, right? And so in the same token, what I tell people is, now that you've given me your time and you've understood the way that I look at it, mirror that. Think about all the interactions you have on a daily basis. How intentional are you being with your time? We say at the Sales Rebellion that time is the currency of sales and that attention is the exchange. Change your mindset around the things that you're doing. Change the game and start to build and create something that feels more like a kingdom instead of a castle that keeps people out, that's old, rusted, stale, crappy, right? Dusty. Get back to the roots. Get back to the idea of building and creating a community, and get back to the basics like time. And you'll find the sales success that you need during this weird time to be alive in the world. It is a weird time to be alive, for sure, man. My vet even told me that the other day when I took my dog in for a surgery, the way you have to even interact with them. He came out to my car and was like, weird time we're living in, yeah? So, but that's what I would leave people with. Think about time, think about the exchange of it and how it affects your daily activities and how you're affecting other people with your choices.
Absolutely. It is a weird time, and I myself have, and everybody has, experienced that. I was supposed to attend 32 in-person trade shows this year. I was signed up, paid for, everything. I ended up going to 2 year to date and, not seeing any more. And so we had to change our strategy significantly. And everybody's had to go through stuff like that. And, it's been great to have people, like you, Dale, and we've had other, industry experts come in and talk about different topics, especially about, through everything going on right now. And so we really appreciate you taking the time and jumping on here. Anyone listening, if you get a chance and, you want to take your sales or your sales reps to the next level, go check out Sales Rebellion. He's got a lot of cool things going on with his podcast, his training programs, everything he's doing. I love it, Dale. And, again, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. I appreciate you having me.